Hello lovely! In this video we're gonna give you model answers and vocabulary about schools. A recent IELTS speaking part 1 topic. I'm Maria.
And my name is Rory, and we're here to help prepare you for IELTS speaking and have a little bit of fun along the way.
We are too cool for school.
We are too cool for school.
We are.
Actually. Because do you teach in a school now?
I used to, I think a couple of times at university we had to do this practice. So, and because I was studying to be an English teacher, the practice was at school, teaching English to children, obviously. So I didn't like that. And also
Nice.
one year after university, I taught in a state school.
So, you used to work in a state school, and as of a few days ago, well, at least a few days ago from the day that we're recording, I also used to work in a state school, but now I don't. I work for myself. So if you're interested in getting classes with me, then do get in touch on Instagram or any of the other channels that we have available. The links will be in the description.
Dear listener, can you imagine our Rory is free and he's free to give classes. But he's got this limited space in his, all around him. So make sure you book your seat in advance to have super classes with our educated native Rory.
Allegedly educated.
He knows all his conditionals and all his, grammar and articles,
Well, I definitely know most of my condition. I know the ones that you need. Stop badgering me.
Did you go to a good school?
Well, I certainly like to think so. I mean, I'm not sure where it ranked on the league tables, but the teachers were certainly competent and seemed to enjoy their jobs most of the time. So I would say that's part of being in a good school.
First of all, we say go to school. Can we say study in a school?
Well, I think for colleges and universities, and particularly in American English, they say I study at X, Y, and Z school. But it's not so common in British English. I haven't heard people say that very often.
I went to a good school or I went to school. Yes or no article. Rory told us, I'm not sure where my school ranked on the league table. The league table is like top schools, and this is like a table. Top 1 is this school. So Rory was not sure about the ranking of his school.
I mean, it did the job, and it was in a reasonably nice middle-class area, so I'm assuming that it was okay.
The teachers were competent. So that's a nice adjective to use about teachers. The teachers were competent, so they were professional, they knew their subjects. And do you say school students or pupils? A very common question.
Oh, this is a fun one because I got in trouble for this all the time in my last job because I would refer to to pupils as students, and apparently that's not acceptable.
Oh, wow.
Apparently, in the eyes of the people I used to work with, students is an American thing and pupils is a British thing.
Really?
Yes. I mean, it is if you're someone who enjoys being a complete control freak when it comes to other people's language. It means the same thing. Somebody who studies in a school.
So it's okay to say pupils, like primary school pupils, secondary school pupils.
Yeah. I mean, other people use the word learners as well, which I think is extremely condescending, but
I think students, this word is more common now, even for school students.
I think so. I just think it's a bizarre thing to get upset about, but there you go. If you're worried about the distinction, then that's what it is. Pupils are young people in British schools. Students are, well, they can be any age, but if we're thinking about young people in schools, then it's an American thing.
Where did you go to school?
On air. I went to a few schools, actually. There were 2 primary schools and that were just up the road from where I lived, literally up the road. You would walk up the road and you would be there. And the high school, which was along the street and then again up the road. So those were the 3 schools that I went to.
Where did you go to school? What kind of question is this? Where did you go to school? Well, in my hometown on Earth. Well, I went to school next to my house. So pretty much that's it, yeah? You can't give more information about it, I don't know. And Rory told us that I went to a few schools, to some schools, 2 primary schools. are usually for grades or forms, like from 1 to 5. So 5 years in or 4 years sometimes in primary school, yeah, and then secondary school and then high school. So Rory changed schools 3 times, you said.
Where I'm from, secondary school and high school are the same thing.
Okay.
It's complicated because I think in Russia, there's 3 schools. There's like the elementary, middle, and high school, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's the same in lots of places in America. But in Scotland, you have primary school and you have secondary school, or primary school and high school. If you're American, then it's like elementary, middle, and then high school. And I don't really understand why there's this distinction between these things. Probably because Russia and America have a much bigger population than Scotland. So you can afford to have children distributed in this way.
So if your school you went to was right next to your house, you can say, I went to a school just up the road from where I lived.
Just up the road usually means close, but when I said literally just up the road, like if you lived where I did and you took a walk outside of the house for about 10 minutes, then you would be there.
Yeah, or you can say it was a 10-minute walk from my house to my school, a 10-minute walk, or it was a 5-minute walk from my house to the school. Did you like your teachers?
Not really, no. I only liked one. I liked Mrs. Jones in primary 4. Hi, Mrs. Jones, if you're listening. And we had a great working relationship. I think I had a great working relationship with her. I imagine that she probably thought I was quite a handful. But with regards to the other teachers, no, I didn't really like them at all. And we didn't get on very well. Not because they were evil, just because I was a pretty unsettled child and they had a great deal of difficulty understanding me or relating to me. But, you know, I was in a class with 30 other pupils, so it's easy to understand why that might not work on a one-to-one basis.
Did you like your teachers? Not really, no. Mrs. Jones, I only loved you.
Mrs. Jones, you were the only nice teacher I ever met. Well, no, that's not fair. Mrs. Jones was the only teacher that was able to relate to me. Those are 2 different things. But, you know, like I say, I was quite a difficult child at school, so I don't really blame my teachers when I was in school. They had other pupils to worry about. It's like...
So, dear listener, you can say I was a difficult child. I was quite a handful. Hand is like handful, full. Like I was difficult to deal with. So I was quite a handful.
I still am difficult to deal with. No, not really. But I like to think I'm quite chilled out right now. Maria, please support.
Yes, you are, darling. You're amazing. You're kind of calm and like... Whatever.
Very convincing. Very convincing. Like, yes, of course.
I was a very unsettled child. Oh, pretty much the same. Yeah, I was a difficult child, unsettled child. So teachers did have problems with me.
Mrs. Jones used to call it lateral thinking, which I think was just a really nice way of saying he just refuses to think like other people.
Lateral thinking is a manner of solving problems using an indirect and creative approach via reasoning that is not immediately obvious. So our Rory was a creative child. They wanted him to do some, like dull tasks, but Rory just painted the walls in Scottish pattern, so he did something creative.
Well, I didn't do that. I just couldn't be bothered doing the work that I didn't want to do, so I didn't. But it turned out all right in the end. But yes, I think that's what lateral thinking means for, in a professional sense. But I think what Mrs. Jones was saying was just he's being difficult.
You can say that we had a great working relationships with teachers, or I get on well with teachers. Also, I got on well with classmates, with my classmates. So classmates, my peers, my classmates. Was there anything you wanted to change about your school?
Well, ideally, I'd have had more time to play and be creative. It's hard to say how that would have turned out, actually. But regardless, things seem to have turned out reasonably well in life. But if I could go back and change things, then I think those would be the two things that I would change.
Now, we use the third conditional.
Sort of, in a very advanced way. Pay attention.
We use the second part of the third conditional. Was there anything you wanted to change about your school? The question is in the past, right? So finito, finish, yeah? Right. Maybe I wanted to change something. So the third conditional. Unreal, in the past, we are thinking. So I would have had more time to play. I would have had the third conditional, okay?
Right.
But I didn't have more time to play. So like in the past, like, oh, I wanted this, but it didn't happen. So I'd have had more time to play, right? Yeah, this was something that I wanted to change, but I didn't. Rory, how did you pronounce this? I'd have, right? You
I'd
said.
have had. Yeah, it sort of like runs together. I would have had.
Yeah, repeat after me. I'd have had.
I'd have had
more time.
Do you know what? There's going to be people going to work on the subway, and they'll be like just sitting there going, I'd have had.
I'd have had more time to play. I'd have had more competent teachers. I'd have had more friends. I'd have had IELTS Speaking for Success podcast. But it turned out reasonably well. So I didn't have this time to play, kind of more time to play, right? But it turned out well. It happened. So everything was okay in the end, even if I didn't have much time to play.
Well, if I think about my life now, it's turned out well, because now I have all the time in the world. It's awesome. At the time, it was probably not so great.
What were the differences between your school and other schools?
Well, it's hard to say, really, because you only have the perspective of yourself in your school, which is a pretty isolated context. I'd say that they were... I don't know what other schools were like, but I would probably say that my schools were a bit impersonal, sort of like factories of conformity and mediocrity, really. Again, not because they're run by horrible people, just because that's the system that you have when you have mass education.
And then Rory got a little bit kind of philosophical. You usually only have the perspective of yourself as a child in an isolated context. Yeah. What is this? Could you just answer the question?
I mean, what was the question again? What were the differences between your school and other schools? Well, how on earth would I know? I mean, I was a child at the time. What would I know?
But now, different schools now, and was there a difference?
No, I don't. What other schools where? Other schools in the world? Well, they're in different countries, so they have different education systems.
Yeah, you see, kind of a strange question. But here you can say well, I think that my school was okay. My school was the same as other schools. And then you can add adjectives, like some not really positive adjectives, like impersonal, dull, the teachers were strict, the school was expensive, for example, or it was middle class, you said at the beginning?
It was in middle class area, hence all of the conformity.
Conformity, and Rory said a factory of conformity. Conformity when you conform to the rules, when you follow the rules, so the crowd follows the rules and you follow the rules. So everybody says that this jacket is black, and also you say that this jacket is black, but it's freaking pink.
Unless you're Rory, in which case you do whatever you like.
Yeah, and this is called conformity. So people conform to rules, or what? Conform to the regulations of society.
Well, they probably conform to social norms.
Social norms, yeah, there you go. Right, so my school was a factory of conformity, a factory of mediocrity. Well, it's kind of a bit harsh. But, maybe it's your opinion. Or you can say that the teachers were competent, it was the best school in the neighborhood because we had this close community, and or I went to a private school, it was expensive, so yeah. But make sure you do use some adjectives, okay? Why were you a handful? What did you do? Did you just what? Threw toilet paper at the teachers?
I was just a pain.
But
I
like
didn't,
in
I
what
didn't
way?
like misbehave or assault the teachers. It was just I was an extremely awkward child and was a bit slow, probably in their opinion.
Were you an introvert, like all like closed in yourself, or were you like? "Blah, blah, 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 blah"?
How best to describe? I was an extroverted introvert. So anything creative was good and fine.
Were you a bully?
No, I mean, like, we all teased each other, but that's not quite the same as like organizing to, hurt or annoy people. That's different.
Yeah, dear listener, could you let us know, were you a bully? Or maybe somebody bullied you, like I was bullied at school.
Really?
Also, like, oh, yeah.
I can't imagine you like allowing
yeah,
anybody to
it was-
behave like that.
No, it was dreadful. At school, I was this like...
Oh,
And also, I had this like red spots on my face and on my hands, and yeah. Yeah,
well, we grew up and we became beautiful butterflies.
I know. Yeah. Thank you very much for listening, dear listener. We also have our premium episodes for you, where we discuss speaking part 2 and 3 recent fresh questions. The links are in the description. So if you want to say thank you to us, if you want to support our free videos and our free podcast, we also have an audio podcast. So please check out our premium. The links are there. Bye.
Bye.